We are back. We're talking about what it means to be a good human being. Do you need religion, socialism, or do you just need to be yourself? So that's what we're discussing. Do you want to come over and join? So we were talking about evolution. Do you remember where you were?
I think I was talking about taking back. So where we tried to make out that they put the ownership on or the final word on moral truth, morality, or being good in. So I think we already knew some of those things. We knew that before that Bible was first written down and recorded. We assumed the intelligence evolved. We understood certain core things had to be good because they were important for us to know. When we started as small tribes, then growing to massive countries of people, and as we immigrated and moved around, because we moved all around the world as human beings, we're not really in one country.
That is very true. There's no sense of one country. There is one humanity.
Yeah, the country, emigrated or immigrated here and there. But I think what's important for us humans is that we know, we understand what's right and what's good, because we see it being demonstrated over and over again. Like I say, when things get really bad, we see the better side of it. The better side of it champions.
Now, that's a very interesting point you've got. Better side. Have you noticed that our media doesn't focus on our better side? Have you noticed it only focuses on the worst? Like chasing criminals in crowds, or always talking about people being always focusing on. You notice that?
Yeah, and if you look at papers like the Daily Mail, that's exactly how they sell papers, and exactly the whole operation crisis, because those kinds of stories will always be more appealing. People then the less exciting stories, which is nice stories, things like how people are doing well. The Sunday Mail don't want to report on that. They want to report on ways to hate another person, or to fuel racism, or fuel divides.
Can I just stop you there? You just said that's what appeals to people the most. I mean, how do we know that's actually true? We don't know. I mean, how do we know that's true?
Well, no, I mean that in an example of, like, say, certain news stories or the way the media present certain things. They'll go for scared fear stories because that gets more attention than a nice story that isn't going to make the front page. I think it's something about. I think that's really where trying to things that scare us in a way. So certain stories might.
Well, I'm going to suggest maybe the reason why people have got that so much is because we've been programmed to be drawn to such stories, because we're constantly told that our world is horrible, and then these papers keep confirming that reality. So I think when a good, positive news stories do materialise, because the programming is so prolific and assiduous, people just don't know how to mentally register such a positive news event, because instantly there's probably you and you out there, the world here, and you there in the internet world, that maybe that it's just something, it's bound to be some sort of corruption here, or some sort of, or I mean, take it away, look at the treat Jeremy Corbyn. All he did was say, well, I promise not to make the world hell, which is the absolute promise New Labour and the Tories guarantee in their manifestos. They literally, in their manifestos, go, yeah, we're going to make this bad situation even worse. That's literally, and then when someone came along and went, well, you know what, we're going to make sure the tax is fair, we're going to make sure that a national health service is fair. Instead of making that good news, because there clearly is great unity, great prioritisation. Hello there. We're talking about what makes a good human being. Is it? You're welcome to please join. You can look and speak as well, because that's a great gift.
Yeah, I know.
We have evolved over billions of years.
Yeah, I know.
And it would be wonderful to have your thoughts. Just off the top of your head, what's good, brief ideas to make a good human being?
Mate, I ain't got a clue.
Oh, haven't we think about it?
Yeah.
Are you riding a bike?
Huh?
You're riding a bike, that's a good human being.
Yeah. No, listen, there's a million bits, but there's a million bits.
Why are you riding a bike? Yeah, I think he was just struggling.
Well, I was only going to say, for example, it's a lot easier to sell. You'll sell more tickets for the horror ride compared to for the teacup ride, because the horror, the scary ride is more thrilling. So the same way, right-wing media have probably
Just clarify that. Right-wing media means, by definition, owned by billionaires, and nobody else is allowed to own the voice of your country. That's how the far right have always conducted business, which is complete censorship over you as a human being. Absolute censorship. That's what I believe. If you disagree with that, maybe say so.
I mean, the only example I could give of how you can sell more papers, if, for example, during the horrendous reign of Trump, so when we had certain protests, the way they would call it is that the protests were troublemakers, and they were all going to take away America. They were all wanting to take away your gun, take away Jesus, and this sort of stuff, which is completely untrue. The people that attended some of those protests just sat in the street left hand, which is completely peaceful, isn't hurting any single person, and they are just using their right that they are told they have in America, which is your freedom of speech and your freedom.
It's just important to remember the only reason they are protesting to begin with is because they're being murdered and repressed and denied any opportunity throughout our brief lives to be the human being that we can be. They're not protesting because they want to own a golden toilet and demand golden toilets for themselves. They're protesting simply for an opportunity to be a human being in this one life that we have on that planet. So let's not confuse the media with what really is going on.
But I mean, that's what I wanted to say as an example. Is things like protests, the way the Sun, the Daily Mail, or someone like that would report it. They want to try and make out that anyone there is a troublemaker or starting trouble. When if you actually go to that, people and they're not starting trouble. But that's not the bit that makes the front page. The bit that makes the front page is to sell more papers. Is when they hone in on the one or two people that didn't decide to go to sleep. That's the bit that makes the papers, that's the story that gets spun. But the 99 other people that attended sat in the street, held up a placard, didn't hurt a single person. That doesn't get as much attention. Whereas that's the bit that should get the attention.
I mean, your observations of perfection, because this is why that far right have to own the media, because that means that anything that you attempt to do in reality can then be instantly perverted into their vision for what they believe should be reality, not what actual reality is, which is, as I just described a moment ago, is us just trying simply, in this brief moment of existence, beautiful existence that we have the best in that moment. And living and working in a slum while earning 26p a day is the literal opposite of all that. And if you think that's, if you think that is any way wonderful, or well, that's just the way life is, then that's because what I said before, the media need to own your brain, and you to be insane is only because of the reality that the media placed in there.
So to kind of come back to what makes a good person is you look out for other people, you defend other people from under attack. So when those papers print something and pick on, for example, someone wants to graduate, wants to read books to children, a completely harmless, beautiful thing. The papers can spin that, and they can make it something else. They can make it seem like a horrible thing when in fact it's not a horrible thing at all. So being a good person is defending those who come under attack from sometimes the bullying by printing papers, the stand, whatever. Is to stand with those people under attack, because you have to remember that they may be coming under attack today, but it could be you tomorrow. And if you don't stand up for those people, they can't stand up for you.
And what you've perfectly described, hi there, see you later. And what you've described there perfectly, by the way, is the lead up to World War II and virtually all wars, to be honest with you. And the socialists and the unions were saying what you were saying pre-World War II, and for that, they're saying what you just said and acting on it in a way to try and end the masters of war. They were punished by being placed into concentration camps. Even Joseph, who comes here regularly, acknowledges the fact that socialists and the unions were in concentration camps, being slaughtered, not for their religious beliefs, but for their just wanting to end war. I mean, that is a good human being wanting to end war.
Yeah, because obviously in war, it's just a competition of who can kill the most people, or who can endure the most death. There's no winners.
I would say war, I think, well, first, you're not wrong, just to clarify that. I would also add to that, I should say, war's about making as much profit of people as humanly possible. And best capitalist model for making profit of people is religion, organised religion, and war, because you don't even need to trick somebody into being murdered. You can just suddenly go, well, I don't like these Jewish people, I'm going to claim all their money, and then murder the Jewish people in concentration camps in World War II, which is exactly what the capitalist hero, Hitler, absolutely did. Did you know Hitler, his idea of a good human being was adoring great wealth, and therefore he could fund his wars of genocide in World War II?
You know that, but that would fit on his model, obviously.
Henry Ford thought a good human being was Hitler. Henry Ford, Time magazine in America, who had hit their man of the year in America was Hitler. So America was backing Hitler because they thought Hitler was a good human being because of the war and murder that he promised from his religious upbringing. And why? We shouldn't have to ask this question, but it's a rhetorical question, of course. Why is murdering people not a good human being? It's unbelievable. We have to actually ask that question.
So you've got to think of it as it's a better word. I've forgotten the word I normally use for this one. So you've got to think of it as in like if he said everything is okay, like you're allowed to do anything you want, by the way, you go, okay, well, Now we start taking every stop we see on rock, and we apply well-being. So, um, does me murdering someone else uh, improve my well-being? No, it's the person's dead. And someone could then murder you. You said murder's okay, so that means you might die. Not a good idea, is it? You can apply that rule. Is rape okay? No, because it's harm someone's well-being. So we're going to say in our new society, no, rape is wrong, and we can start to work through that. We can understand, no, these are wrong, these are bad, and they don't help society, and they go against human rights. And you have to remember that if you're saying, we're going to say it's okay for someone else, and that means they could then refuse. So why would you say okay to it? It shouldn't be that, it should be pretty common sense, but some people still need that explanation.
Yeah, it's and one of the reasons why this reality that you described is manifested the way you experience today and you described perfectly is because there are some schools that do teach that murdering is perfectly wonderful, and their heroes in those schools, like Oxbridge, have statues to murderers and rapists. Just go around to Oxbridge and research the statues that they proudly put on display. Their idea of a good person is a slave owner. Their idea of a good person is steals and rapes from other countries. And look how rich and beautiful Oxbridge made itself. I recommend going to Oxbridge and have a walk around. It's a bleeding picture. But just remember your eyes and brain and ears when you walk around there. That everything you see there, so blood and great. Hundreds of millions of people over centuries, possibly more people actually. Is it shocking news, or were you aware of how our statues, ours as in the UK, not ours as in mine?
Yeah, well, you've got it all around you. You've got empire and oppression. Some things that we're quite proud of. If you really thought about it, how we got those symbols and things, they're not things to be proud of. You should be proud of the fact that we were one of the biggest slave traders in the world. It's not a thing to be proud of. Why, we had a great empire, but at what cost? What was the cost of that great empire? You died so that you could have a great empire. How many countries were pillaged and raped because they needed to come under the great British empire? Like it's a glorious thing. I'm speaking partly because I have Irish family and I understand some of the Irish history, so some of the sort of little anger there comes from my understanding of history there. That's a classic example of an empire or an overwhelming country that can own something else.
Just quickly interject, just to make a factual point, which is that all empires do this.
Yeah.
The very bedrock of an empire is, at its core, it speaks to God, and through the laws that God have passed down, these actions of horror that we've just described are normalised and justified.
Yeah, yeah, it's not until I started to look at some of that history that I realised that this great British Empire that you talk about in school, in British schools, is actually a fantasy, and it's told a little bit more truthfully in terms of Irish history. It's told a little bit more truthfully in Ireland. They tell some facts that they don't want to teach here. Look up things like the Black and Tan, some of that history there. You understand it a bit more. You start to see the other side of the argument rather than just this side. You understand there are two sides of this story. But yeah, you have symbols of what this country has got away with, blatantly in the face. I mean, they've got symbols everywhere what they tried to get away with, and then they're suddenly shocked that we want to change some of those statues, or we'd rather, instead of having a slave owner, can't we have someone that's won the Olympics?
Well, let me interject here. I think what we're saying here, by the way, is that the reason why those statues and paintings exist all across the UK, slave owners, mass murderers and rapists, is because that's how our establishment think that is a good person. And what do we do with our idea of a good person? We immortalize them. That's what we do. The reason why you see these entities of what I've just described as in the form of art and stone and other myriads of poetry is because that's their establishment's idea, empire idea, Christian, Jewish or Muslim empire. So you need to right below that sheet for empire. Pretty sure Muslims don't do that. So strike that one to the right. I could be wrong, but please put that in the comments below. I'd appreciate that. So that's their idea of a good human. That's why the statue in front of you exists, because they're saying this is the height of you, and the height of you is being a rapist, a murderer, and any other feats, common feat, slave owner, thank you, and other myriads of horror. That's why those statues exist, and that's why people get upset they exist. That's why people go, wow, why are we saying this is the height of humanity?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine seeing a black person from African descent elsewhere and having
Or
down the road
an Irish
child.
person looking at
Yeah,
Cromwell
walking down the road with a child and asking what's the statue. Don't say that's someone that once upon a time owned our ancestors, transported them ships and sold them like they're a commodity, like they're an item, a thing you can show off to your other rich friends. Wouldn't you rather have a statue of someone like, say, a woman that's been pioneering, that's been a real hero? That's someone you can see yourself as that person. How you can, what you can achieve, what you can do. That's so much more empowering to people. What's there to be empowered about by a slave owner?
I think that is. So I think the question then now is, if we were to start creating statues and paintings from our view of reality, what are the three, obviously there'll be more, but off the top of our heads just now, us two, what would be one of the three things we'd look for behind the reason we'd make a human being into a statue?
Well, I would rather have people that were brave, that were heroic. So being a slave owner is braver.
No, it's called being as easy as possible.
People that put themselves before others, great adventurers that explored the world, went into, that maybe flew around the world for the first time, or just inspired. People that are inspirational, there you go, there's inspire people to
Inspiring.
try to achieve.
Inspires. We're trying to work at trying to work the definition of what inspiring is. As I just said, people thought Winston Churchill was inspiring, which is kind of understandable. But he did murder loads of people in South Africa.
Yeah,
So it's really not that inspiring. So it's inspiring. So it's what. So for example, I was thinking. Wonderful to see what qualities of a nurse or a dustbin man, and having them become the heroes, not dedicating all their lives to do some great work, smiling at people, engaging throughout the whole life of their jobs, and giving their absolute best because they know that they are a worthy member of our society.
Yeah, so definitely after
Police officers.
After the pandemic and everything, then there definitely should be a statue of someone to represent the NHS or a nurse or you know what I mean? Something that is that something you can celebrate. We're really pulled through to it, and people really pull together. It comes back to being good, defining what's good.
You're absolutely right.
With something like that is a good example.
He's just described brilliantly what we should have, a monument to the National Health Service and the heroes that are you in the National Health Service. That statue should be part of you if you wish to be part of that. And what have we got instead? We just got the tourists telling you to clap. And then privatising and cutting your wages dramatically. So that's what the Tories regard as a monument of great achievement, cutting your wage.
And also just so anyone maybe swallowing some of the right-wing stuff and this stuff that comes from them. When I say about taking certain statues down, the argument against that would be, oh, you're trying to erase history, you're trying to cut out history. Of course, no one should cut out history, no one should erase history. History is still there. You can still look this stuff up. We're not getting rid of books about the slave. You can still read up about these slave owners. The history is still there. It's just, it'd be nice to have statues that are more worthwhile, more inspiring, and represent something better in all of us, or what we can achieve, rather than celebrating the worst, an icon of something that represents the worst of us.
Yeah, an icon that's saying you're the best of you, as I said a moment ago, is how low and disgusting you can be. That's what our statues dominantly represent. There are some, we do have statues in the house that used to have one, and we do have one hidden away from Charlie Chaplin, one of people like this, and throughout the country. I'm sure you can list below tomorrow on the comments below other great statues. And those statues of slave owners, I think they should come down, by the way. And I also think there should be a museum built of saying what it is like to be a disgusting human being, and have those family names proudly put on there what a disgusting human being absolutely is. And maybe that's a bit harsh, actually. But is that a bit harsh? Actually, you need to think about that.
A lot of people would go along with that. But,
Yeah, actually, I'll strike that from the record. Let me finish. What I'm trying to say is that there are families that still profit from slavery. That's where I was trying to go with that. So take back what I just said a minute ago, because I think that was a bit too harsh. But there needs to be some sort of understanding that that money, that gross money that was made raping your family, there are families that still have that money in there. So something does need to happen there, something of high moral action. But
yeah, I think we need to be quite clear. Let's say Joe Bob is a rich guy, and we should be quite open and honest and not let hide the fact that the reason my character here, Joe Bob, has so much money or he's had so much money passed down is because 5 generations ago, 4 generations ago, whatever, they were slave owners. And whatever, how many generations ago they may have been slave owners, or they may have made their money off the back while people were suffering.
yeah, I think
Because if you try and hide that, then you're taking it away from the people that suffer. You should be quite clear and honest and open about how they made their money. Now then Joe Bob could go, I am ashamed of where I got my wealth from, and that will be a better person. At least you're honest. You could go, I'm not proud of where my money's come from. I'm not proud of what a great-great-grandfather done and how this family has had its money, and they want to put money back in and help people. That would be a good person.
And that doesn't mean condemning Joe.
Yeah.
It just means acknowledging that existence. And I think, as you rightly point out, the real inheritance children have from slave labor, or if your parents are people of murderers, because unfortunately there are parents that exist on this planet that are murderers in business. They use business as an expression to murder people, or other actual business with war. They're your children, they're you. Don't grow. Your inheritance isn't the money; it's the guilt and horror which your parents never could address and understand. And you live with that guilt and horror, subconsciously and consciously in a lot of cases. And that's no way to live your life. And you shouldn't be punished, as I think is now obviously the right thing to do. But it does need to be addressed and dealt with. And yes, some of that money should be returned. And but that doesn't mean you living in poverty, because obviously nobody wants you to be traumatised. But obviously there does need to be some defined set of clear rules where everybody in this relationship come out of it compassionately and understand it, and with acknowledgement that reality can be better, and you don't have to hide in your pain and darkness, and actually can walk around freely amongst everybody here without the fear of persecution, prosecution, or any attack on any kind of level, which is like, a nice healthy way to live.
Yeah, I mean, let's say our character here is made up for the sake of argument. Joe Bob is a millionaire. So
Billionaires,
whatever. He's born into the wealth. That's not by his choice. That's just where he starts in life. But maybe coming back to being a good person again. But he could be a good person and go, oh no, this is where all the money's come from, going to this history list. Oh, well then I need to put this money back into those countries that lost that, or I could put money back into the people that need it the most, and I can help the communities. At least then you're doing something good, and then Joe doesn't deserve to be condemned or hated because it wasn't his choice to be born into that wealth. You've got to remember that. It's none of our choices to be born where we start in life. That's just what we get given, and we have to make the most of what we've got. And we have to try and be the best person we can be, try and be good.
Thank you.
But then Joe gets to redeem his history in a way because he goes out and helps people. And he doesn't just have the money and hold it into himself. Like, no, it's mine, you can't have it. No, there wasn't any slavery. No, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's open, honest. Yeah, there was slavery. I am ashamed of it. But now I want to try and do something good. I want to try and he'd want his next generation, kid after him, to move away from the slavery and move forward and go, now our family name should be, when people say our family name, it's about how much good we do. Not, oh no, that's the family that had the slave. It should be, no, that's the family that give the most money to charity.
And that was a good person.
Maybe that's what
that is a good person. It's hard to be a good person when your parents are committing so much horror. That is generally hard, but that, as you mentioned, correctly indicated to me, that avenue should exist, and that existence should be found real and measurable and quantifiable. And I believe that sounds like a beautiful reality that we've helped to create. Obviously, there are millions of other things that we need to discuss in life, reality, to help make the world better. But I think we've hit upon quite a profound one, because one of the great things about, one of the things I've witnessed quite a lot here at Speaks On is that there are some really horrible people that come along, and because you mentioned there's horror in the world and in Great Divide and wealth, somehow that's all come from me because I'm just jealous or selfish or just, I want a gold toilet too sort of mentality. That's absolutely insane. And what I want, and I believe Martyn definitely demonstrated, is what we really want is good people. We want humanity. You have the choice to be a good person. But if you want to be a bad person, you can be a bad person to a degree, of course. But there are laws against bad people, like murder and theft, and those should be imposed on an international level, not on a whim, which is the current legal system we have on this planet.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's about it. Just try. I would say,
on a positive, you've got this wonderful message that he's always telling me, which is always end on a positive note. Ask the people.
I
so
think
I'll ask you.
My last sort of little advice that I would say is, as always, when you read things like the papers or you're exposed to things in the media or like social media, don't take everything as fact. Take it with a pinch of salt, because sometimes they're just trying to sell you a quick story that will make some money, like I said, with protests. I know what some done, a lot of that sort of stuff. So always use reason, always use rational thought, and always use logic, and apply that to stories you read, and try to compare it to lots of different sources, and then try to come to a conclusion. Don't read it, just go, that must be true, and then carry on, because that's what they want you to do.
They call that, by the way, critical thinking. And yes, critical thinking is something that we should definitely be taught in schools much more efficiently and proudly. And that critical thinking then will obviously, when you see the reality that you thought was normal, suddenly you'll start seeing statues and going, hang on, what is that statue? Hang on, is he a good person? What the people who put that statue up, what was their idea of a good person? Let's look into it. That's the process of critical thinking. Obviously a little bit more complicated than that, but not that much more complicated than that. Bringing morality and emotion of feeling pain, that other people feel in pain, but instead of using emotion to hurt other people or just purely revenge or some primitive reaction, reason and critical thinking will sharpen our understanding and bring compassion, and what I believe you have perfectly embodied in this last lifetime. Actually, not just the last 20, 30 minutes, but this lifetime. But thank you ever so much.
That's all right.
Deeply honoured to have you as a guest, and thank you very much. And I'll leave you with my signing off phrase, which is, your dreams are real. Now please dream for the best. Thank you very much. Bro,
All right.
bring it in.
That was good.
Did that actually record?
Okay.